What happens when you combine demons, hyenas, and the worst case of the munchies ever? You get gnolls, of course. These hyena-faced fiends have been bent on an endless rampage since the very beginning of D&D. If you need a truly vicious foe to waylay your players, look no further. My name is Josh, and in this video, I'm going over their appearance, lore, mechanics, and a sample combat encounter, focusing primarily on their 2025 Monster Manual entry. Watch until the end if you want to see a powerful legendary creature boss Gnoll I've created to really challenge a party. Before we get any further though, today's question: should DMs portray Gnolls or any other intelligent monster as universally evil? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Alrighty, let's get started with appearance. Here's how a DM could introduce a Gnoll. Through the smoke emerges a hunched figure well over 7 feet tall and clad in mismatched, rusty armor. It bleeds from many wounds, but shows no signs of slowing. If anything, it's becoming frenzied, its movements erratic and unpredictable. It turns its hyena-like head to regard you with black, lifeless eyes. It bares its fangs and throws its head back in a cackling howl, echoed by its rampaging packmates. Gnolls are essentially hyena folk. Most artwork depicts them as bipedal, spotted hyenas. You'll often see them in scavenged armor, wielding weapons taken from their prey. Lore. Gnolls are the result of hyenas consuming flesh tainted by the abyss, usually the scraps left behind by Yeenoghu, the demon lord of slaughter. Yeenoghu is a blood-frenzied behemoth that rampages across the plains, basically a giant hyena demon. Most Gnolls worship Yeenoghu, who they see as part parent and part god. They're born in its image with insatiable hunger as their inheritance. When a Gnoll feeds, it's said to feed Yeenoghu as well. Evoking their demonic progenitor, Gnolls also rampage across the plains, typically traveling in a large pack called a warband. They are nomadic, often traveling from killing field to killing field in search of easy prey, while taking care to avoid fortified settlements. Mechanics. There are 4 Gnoll stat blocks in the 2025 Monster Manual. I'll cover them weakest to strongest. The Gnoll Warrior is a switch-hitter skirmisher, with dark vision and average stats. These are your rank-and-file Gnolls. Their signature ability is a bonus action called Rampage, a rushdown mechanic that encourages them to be aggressive and target bloody creatures. Every Gnoll and Gnoll-adjacent creature has Rampage, including the Gnoll Pack Lord, a Gnoll with a big stat upgrade and multi-attack. This Gnoll fills a Warlord archetype, letting allies with Rampage make reaction attacks. This is your standard boss Gnoll for low-level games. Next, the Gnoll Fang of Yeenoghu. This Gnoll has a poisonous bite, and it speaks Abyssal. These are the spiritual leaders amongst Gnolls, if one could call it that. Hyenas flock to them, and they are often the ones to prepare the flesh for their demonic transformation. But more importantly, they interpret Yeenoghu's will through dark omens, blood splatters, the death rattle of a foe, and astrology. Lastly is the Gnoll Demoniac, a CR 8 Gnoll and the closest we get to a Gnoll spellcaster. It has a ranged poison attack and a control ability similar to the Hunger of Hadar spell, a very rare control area of effect option amongst Gnoll kind. The Demoniac speaks Common and has the highest intelligence of the 4. My headcanon is that this is what happens if a awakened hyena is turned into a Gnoll. All 4 of these Gnolls make up a warband, and I encourage you to use all 4 in combat. Speaking of combat, the scouts have spotted a juicy target headed their way. As the wagon train makes its way through the choke point, the Demoniac blocks their way with its Hunger of Yeenoghu. It then signals the Pack Lord, who springs the trap. They order a squad of Gnoll warriors and a few Fangs of Yeenoghu to encircle their prey and trap them in the pass. They also place a few archers up on the high ground to pick off stragglers. Gnolls don't like survivors who could raise an alarm. The Fangs will also bring their hyenas, who will go after the weakest prey, civilians. I always like putting civilians in a Gnoll combat because it gives the players another objective and splits their focus. So in this scenario, the objective basically is to fight off the Gnolls while keeping the people alive. They can either defeat the pack, abandon the civilians, which would be pretty dark but kind of funny, or attack the Demoniac to break its concentration, allowing the wagons to make a break for it. Gnolls are great, perfect I'd say, for a random encounter, like this one. An uncompromising threat that needs to be stopped. However, they can be a little one-note. If you want to run a campaign or adventure where gnolls are showing up consistently, the best way to keep their encounters fresh is to add some variety to the warband. Here's 7 ways to do that. Number 1, add humanoids. Either a gaggle of cannibal cultists who worship Yeenoghu and live amongst the gnolls, or a band of thieves that trail the warband to pick over the spoils they leave behind. You could have a researcher from a university that travels with them for the convenience and protection, and they could share their findings with the party. Number 2, add undead. The Gnoll witherling is the result of gnolls getting so hungry they eat their own kind. One quick ritual later, and you have a shambling undead gnoll. These witherlings could perhaps form the rear guard of the warband, along with other undead such as ghouls. Number 3, add demons. A higher level adventure may call for demons like the Vrock or Hezrau to join the gnoll ranks. Or you could pull from older sources for demons like the Maw Demon, or my personal favorite, the Shusuva, which I see as a gnoll version of a ranger's companion. Number 4, gnoll upgrades. By adding class features, we can make our gnolls more difficult and dynamic. To the gnoll pack lord, I'd add features from the Battlemaster Fighter. This pushes it even further into that battlefield commander type role. To the Fang of Yeenoghu, I would add aspects of the War Domain Cleric. This adds to their capabilities both in combat and as a spiritual leader. And to the Demoniac, I would add features of Warlock. Devil's Sight would be brutal alongside Hunger of Yeenoghu, as it could see the creatures trapped within and attack them with advantage. Number 5, a warband's signifier. Each gnoll warband is unique and will implement different tactics. Some might use fire arrows, others might poison their weapons, some might take prisoners alive for a snack later on. Your more notorious warbands might even get named after this signature feature. For a creepy encounter, you could have your warband only attack at night. Just imagine the sounds of hyena laughter in the dark, mixed in with the screams of the dying, a scene straight out of a horror film. Number 6, intelligent gnolls. Branching off of my headcanon that the demoniacs come from awakened hyenas, we could take things in a different direction. An awakened hyena turned gnoll who manages to keep their hunger at bay. The party could meet a gnoll adventurer who has sworn an oath to destroy the pack who turned it into a monster. Number 7, the Flind is the apex of gnoll kind, a CR9 melee brawler with powerful debuff effects. Only one Flind can exist in a single pack, it's just too territorial. I've taken the old Flind and made it a legendary creature. It hits like a truck, powers up other gnolls, and can debuff the party. Perfect for a final boss gnoll that has rallied a powerful warband around it. So that's Gnolls, a pretty straightforward monster, perfect for a random encounter or a brief arc in a low to mid-tier campaign. The Gnoll warband can generate a lot of encounters, especially if you go outside the 4 entries in the 2025 Monster Manual. With that, I hope to have inspired you to try out Gnolls in your next D&D adventure. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something or entertained, or ideally both. On the left here, the Demon Lord Yeenoghu has sent you a vision. Will you click on it? And on the right is more Monster Manual goodness. Enjoy.